5 sisters grow up in a comfortable English house. By law, not one of them can inherit it. When their father dies, the house, the land, the $2,000 a year it earns, all of it passes to a man most of them have barely met for a single reason. He is a man, and they are not. That is not the tragic subplot of Pride and Prejudice. It is almost the first thing Jane Austen tells you about this family. We have spent 200 years reading the book as the greatest love story in the language. It opens as a problem of property. You know the first line even if you have never read the book. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. We quote it as a charming little joke about romance. Read it again, slowly. The words doing the work are good fortune and want. It is a sentence about money and a market. And the joke is that a rich stranger is treated as common property the moment he arrives in the neighborhood. A new adaptation reaches television this year, and the doorway swings open again. The wit, the dances, the proud man and the sharp woman, the 2 weddings. Keep the love story. We are going to read the file underneath it. Start with the house. Longbourn, £2,000 a year, a comfortable gentleman's estate. And in Chapter 7, Austen states the family's real situation in one cool sentence. The property was entailed, in default of heirs male, on a distant relation. Strip away the old language, and here is what it means. The estate was tied down by a legal instrument centuries old, a device that forced land to descend only to male heirs of the body. The Bennets have 5 daughters and no son, so the law does not divide the estate among the girls. It does not pause. It looks past all 5 of them to the nearest man in the bloodline, a cousin, Mr. Collins, and hands him everything. And the daughters cannot be slipped around it. Under this kind of settlement, the law was blunt. Where land is held to the heirs male, the heirs female shall never inherit. You might think the father could simply fix this. Rewrite a will, break the entail, provide for his own children? He could not. The best legal reading of the novel is that Mr. Bennet was only a tenant for life. He held the estate, he did not own it outright, and the entail could be cut only with the cooperation of the son who would have come next. That son was never born. So this is not laziness, and it is not cruelty. It is a lock, and the only key was a boy who did not exist. Austen even shows you it was a choice, not a law of nature. And she puts the proof in the mouth of the most arrogant character in the book. Lady Catherine de Bourgh, hearing how Longbourn is settled, says it plainly.
I see no occasion for entailing estates from the female line. It was not thought necessary in Sir Lewis de Bourgh's family.
Other families left their land to daughters. The Bennets did not. Someone, a generation back, chose the male line and locked 5 women out of their own home. So hold the first question the board raises. Whose house is it? Not theirs. It never was. Now look again at the character everyone is taught to laugh at. Mrs. Bennet. Silly, shrill, obsessed with marrying off her girls. Put the entail back on the table, and her hysteria turns into something else. A correct reading of a real threat. Her husband can die at any time. The day he does, his widow and 5 unmarried daughters lose the house, the income, the whole life they were raised inside. To a cousin who, in Mr. Bennet's own words, may turn them out as soon as he pleases. She is not a fool panicking over nothing. She is the only adult in the house doing the arithmetic. The family is one funeral away from ruin, and she is the only one who keeps saying so out loud. But suppose a daughter does the sensible thing and marries. Surely then she is safe, a wife, a household, property of her own. Here the second engine of the story comes into view, and it is harsher than the first. Because under the law of the time, a married woman did not own anything either. The authority is William Blackstone, whose commentaries were the standard account of English law in Austen's lifetime. On marriage, he wrote,
"By marriage, the husband and wife are one person in law. That is, the very being or legal existence of the woman is suspended during the marriage, or at least is incorporated and consolidated into that of the husband."
One person in law. And that person was the husband. This was not a turn of phrase. It was the machinery of daily life. The moment a woman married, her money and her possessions became, in Blackstone's words, the husband's immediate and absolute property. She could not sign a contract. She could not bring a lawsuit in her own name. She had no legal claim even to her own children. Blackstone described all of this as a kindness. So great a favorite, he wrote, is the female sex of the laws of England. And none of it changed in Austen's lifetime, or for decades after. Married women did not begin to win the right to their own property until 1870, and not fully until 1882, more than half a century after she was dead. So put the two laws side by side. A daughter cannot inherit her father's house. A wife cannot own anything of her own, which leaves exactly one piece of property a woman in this world could actually acquire and hold for life. Not land, not money, a husband. Marriage was not the happy ending bolted onto the plot. In this economy, it was the only asset on the market that a woman was allowed to own. That is the second answer the board gives. What could a woman own? Almost nothing, except the man she married. Once you see that, the numbers in the novel stop being background and start being the plot. When Mr. Collins proposes to Elizabeth, he reminds her, with perfect rudeness, exactly what she is worth on paper.
£1,000 in the 4%, which will not be yours till after your mother's decease, is all that you may ever be entitled to.
£1,000 invested at 4% pays £40 a year. That is a Bennet daughter's entire fortune. £40 a year, and not even that until her mother dies. Set that against the wider world. In the same England, a butler earned more than £50 a year, a footman around 25. And a woman of her class could not simply go and earn the difference. The only respectable paid work open to a gentleman's daughter was to become a governess, teaching another family's children for £20 to £35 a year, and losing her own social standing the moment she took the post. So this is the trap, stated as a sum. A gentleman's daughter is handed about £40 a year, less than the family butler, and forbidden by the rules of her own class to earn more. Now recall the man at the center of the romance. Mr. Darcy has £10,000 a year. £10,000 against her 40. His income is roughly 250 times hers. Pemberley is not a daydream. It is solvency at a scale she will never reach any other way. Which brings us to the character the book quietly dares you to judge, Charlotte Lucas. 27 years old, plain, small fortune, and when ridiculous Mr. Collins, freshly refused by Elizabeth, turns to her, she accepts him within days. Readers have winced at it for 2 centuries. She tells Elizabeth exactly why, and she does not pretend.
I am not romantic, you know. I never was. I ask only a comfortable home.
Austen's own narrator calls a marriage like this the only honorable provision for a well-educated young woman of small fortune, her pleasantest preservative from want. Charlotte is not the cautionary tale. She is the one character who reads the ledger correctly and acts on it. She marries the very man who will inherit Longbourn, buying for herself the security the Bennet sisters are about to lose. And let me be careful here, because this is the one place the story could be twisted. Austen does not simply approve. Elizabeth is dismayed. She feels she has lost her friend. And the marriage, when we see it, is a quiet daily endurance. Charlotte arranging her hours so as to sit with her husband as little as possible. So both things are true at once, and the novel holds them both. Charlotte made the rational choice, and the rational choice cost her something real. That is not a contradiction Austen failed to notice. It is the contradiction she built the book on. You can measure the stakes by what happens when the system breaks. The youngest sister, Lydia, runs off with an officer who has no intention of marrying her. In a romance, that is a scandal. In this economy, it is a financial event, and the novel says so flatly, again through the unpleasant characters. One daughter's ruin, Mr. Collins writes, will injure the fortunes of all the others. For who would now connect themselves with such a family? One sister's disgrace lowers the marriage value of all 5. The whole household can default at once. And the rescue is not romantic either. When Mr. Darcy steps in, he does it with money, paying off the officer's debts, more than £1,000, settling another 1,000 on Lydia, buying the man his commission. He is not making a grand gesture. He is purchasing the Bennet family's future, item by item. Now here is the honest part, and it matters. None of this is hidden. We did not crack a code. Austen put the money on the first page and the law in the dialogue. Her first readers felt every pound of it. What changed is us. 2 centuries of soft focus adaptations taught us to watch the love and skim the ledger. To take the thing the book is most precise about and treat it as set dressing. We are not revealing a secret Austen buried. We are turning the lights back on in a room she lit herself. And notice who she made say the cruelest lines about money. Mr. Collins, Lady Catherine. The brutal economics is not our reading imposed on the book. It is in the book's own mouth. Which leaves one last question. Who could map a marriage market this precisely? The rates, the traps, the cost of a single wrong step. Someone who had stood in it herself. So close the book for a moment and look at the woman who wrote it. On the evening of the 2nd of December, 1802, Jane Austen, by her family's account, accepted a proposal of marriage. The man was Harris Bigg-Wither, the heir to a large estate. Marrying him would have made her mistress of a great house and secured her sister and her widowed mother for life. It was, on paper, the Darcy ending. By the next morning, she had taken it back. She said no. Security on one side, affection on the other. And she chose affection and paid for it in the only currency the law left her. That story reaches us secondhand, through her family, written down long after she was gone. So hold it lightly. But it rhymes, almost too closely, with the choice the whole book turns on, because she had no Pemberley to fall back on. 3 years later, her father died, and Jane, her sister, and her mother were left to depend on the charity of her brothers. The novels we treasure were written in a cottage one wealthy brother lent them, a house she lived in and never owned. She knew precisely the thing her characters feared, and she said so in her own hand late in her life.
Single women have a dreadful propensity for being poor, which is one very strong argument in favor of matrimony.
And in the same breath, the other half of the truth she never let go of, that anything was to be preferred or endured rather than marrying without affection. She believed both. The whole book lives in the gap between them, and the economy she wrote about did not spare her as its author. She sold the copyright of Pride and Prejudice outright for £110. She had hoped for £150. It was published with no name on it at all, only by the author of Sense and Sensibility. Across her entire life, her writing earned her something on the order of £600, less than a 16th of 1 year of Mr. Darcy's invented income. The woman who wrote the sharpest book in the language about money and marriage made from it almost nothing, and owned at the end almost nothing. So read the first sentence one more time with the file open beside it. A single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. We always heard that as a joke about eager mothers and rich bachelors, but turn it over. In this world, it is the women who are in want of a house they cannot inherit, an income they cannot earn, a legal existence the law suspends the day they marry. The fortune is on his side of the sentence, the need is on theirs. It was never only a love story, it was a survival story that was generous enough to let one family win. Jane Austen did not win it. She never married. She never owned a house. She died in 1817 at 41 and was buried under a stone that praised her character and did not mention that she had written a single book. She had held the safe ending in her hands for one night and given it back. Then she sat in a house that was not hers and wrote the funniest book in English about the thing that frightened her most and made it end in a wedding because she knew exactly how rare that ending was and how much it cost. The love story is real. So is the ledger underneath it. Now read the first sentence again.